starting with Dave and followed by, who's next? Lee, and then Sharon as I organize us, and then Justin, and finally Peter. But first, I wanted to ask you guys a quick question. We'll go around the virtual room very, very quickly, which is, this is health themed and physical health and wellness themed. What is the biggest physical achievement you've ever accomplished in your life? The single biggest physical achievement? Dave?
Last year during the pandemic, they canceled my first 100-mile race that was supposed to happen in March in the Outer Banks. And so I did 25-mile laps in my neighborhood and ran my first 100-mile race. Easily the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Took me 30 hours, including a 4-hour nap. And then I did another one a month later. But that first one was the hardest thing I've ever done. Yeah, easily.
Incredible. Why did you have to ask him first?
I remember, by the way, listening to the audio of Born to Run while I was running. And the very first line, I think, is human beings were not engineered or made to run. And then all the incidents of injuries. Lee, what about you?
Wow, that's incredible, Dave. It takes me 3 weeks to run 100 miles. So for me, I guess I would say it would be transforming myself from a 270-pound chair potato to a much leaner, more active version of myself. I like to call Lee 2.0. I lost 65 pounds and went through a journey to sort of start to optimize myself. And so I've been exploring lots of different forms of exercise. Running is really where I've landed. So doing about 40 miles a week or so, rain or shine or cold or warm, whatever.
And if you really want to feel good about Lee and bad about yourself, I encourage you to follow him on Instagram. I think my real man crush is on Lee as opposed to Charles Darwin. Sharon, what about you?
So, I mean, I'm following on after Lee, but I am also a what I call an FFP, is a former fat person. I don't want to be fattest here, but I was definitely a couch potato, definitely very, very unhealthy in every possible way. And now I'm into fitness, I'm into clean eating, but for me to have not only done that and to become a spinning instructor, I still have to pinch myself when I'm in front of a room. And I've previously also done keynote speaking and presenting to realize that I've, now sitting on the other side and I'm motivating the other people and I'm encouraging them. That's, my greatest achievement.
I've done one of her spinning classes, and I literally was injured. I think I injured myself afterwards because it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Justin, how about you?
Oh, I think that, I've always been involved in fitness immediately following my first 2 seizures. I had lost around 50 to 60 pounds of just body weight, muscle, overall body weight in like 6 weeks. So much so that my skin was wrapped around my scapula. And so that was 2014, 2015. So, 2 years later, I had competed in some other races and whatnot, but I completed the Spartan World Championships. And that was held at Squaw Valley, so maximum elevation of 10,000 feet. And it was 18 miles, around 35 obstacles. And because it was the World Championship, everything was twice as high or twice as long. So, instead of a 10-foot A-frame to climb, it was a 25-foot A-frame to climb. And it included a 45-degree swim. Water that was a pond that was 45 degrees, and they had to have divers in the water because when your body goes from as hot as it is running, in that, your core temperature heats up, and then you jump into 45-degree water. People were literally seizing. All their muscles just seize. So that took about 8.5 hours to complete, and so that was probably
Amazing.
one of the biggest achievements.
Amazing. By the way, Bob Farnham did one push-up yesterday, so everything is relative. How about you, Mr. Peter Shankman?
Well, I don't know how to compete with that. I most of my life I grew up as a kid and young adult. I would run by pressing X on a joystick. In college, I ran to the store for cigarettes. It wasn't until my late 20s that I had an employee working for me who was a runner, and she said, "Let's go for a run." And I went, "I don't do that." And she went, "No, come on, you'll lose weight and you'll have a better chance of like getting laid." Literally, her words to me. And I said, "Okay, I'll do this." And I went. I ran about maybe half a mile and nearly dropped dead, but got high as a kite from that. And that was my first real experience with dopamine, which then led to years later doing a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, a marathon. Each time getting a little more high from that exercise, and then finally attempted the ultimate. And in 2010, about 11 years ago, completed my first Ironman. And I know that it's confusing to everyone watching because you're looking at me and say, Peter, no, you've watched the movie Ironman while sitting on your ass eating popcorn. But no, I did Ironman Cozumel, which is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and then a full 26.2 mile marathon, all within 17 hours. I attempted another one in 2014 in Louisville. The temperature at the start of the race was 102 degrees. I woke up at mile 13, and this was all told to me at mile 13. Of the marathon, so I'd gotten through everything already. And at the marathon, halfway through the marathon, I stopped for water, and they asked me my name, and I knew it, and I said it. And they said, "How you feeling?" I said, "Feeling great." They said, "Where are you right now?" I said, "I'm in New York City," which is a problem because I was in Louisville, and I woke up in an ambulance with an IV in each arm. So not one to learn from my mistakes. I am currently training for the Kona World Championships, where it all began. So the Kona Ironman it was supposed to be this past October. So it is this October of 21 in Kona, Hawaii. Another full Ironman, after which I will hang up my Ironman spurs. But I'm doing that one for team and training to raise money against leukemia and lymphoma. So I am not very smart. You don't look at me and think Ironman, but I'm one of those people that I don't finish with the Kenyans. I finish with like guys named Ken.
Ken with the bunions. I will answer the question very quickly as well. Growing up, I too was overweight. In my school, they used to do a 1 kilometer run that everyone had to do at the end of our athletic, track meet. I used to hide in the toilet. I would have an asthma attack. And for me, there's no question. Running my first New York marathon, which was the New York Marathon, I ended up running 2. I don't know if I'll ever run another one, but just the ability to run 26.2 miles was still, one of the biggest achievements of my entire life, physical or otherwise. So thank you guys for sharing. Anything is possible.